Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the PGC MLS Local Authors Series, where we'll hear from local Prince George's County authors about their work and their craft. Tonight, we'll be joined by Pamela D. Beverly, Shelley Ellis, and Cardyn Brooks, all romance authors in the Prince George's County area. And they will be hosted by PGC MLS's own Rachael Troianos. We're so excited to have them here and you. So without further ado, let's have our guests.
Hello, my name is Rachel with Prince George's County Memorial Library System. We had planned our first annual local author expo in April at the Bowie branch, but unfortunately we had to cancel it. We did, however, still want to hear from some of our local authors. So with me today, I have a panel of romance genre authors who will be speaking about what it's like to be a romance author. So I'd like to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, tell a bit about yourselves and your books, and focus on any recent releases. So Pam, do you want to start first?
Hi, my name is Pamela Beverly. I'm, I would say, a contemporary romance novelist, not so much uh, pure romance novelist. My latest release is What If an Octopus Followed Me Home? Now, this is not part of the romance genre, but it's my latest release along with my second release named The Love Labyrinth, as well as my first release, which is called Relations.
Okay. And do you want to say about how you got into writing romance?
Um, I basically just always liked writing. Even when I was a kid, I liked writing, making up stories. I used to draw cartoons, and I kind of got away from that because the cartoons got to be like a long storyboard of sorts. Just went on and on, and so I just started writing manuscripts or stories after that. They were mostly short stories, but I just always had kind of a I guess a uh, romance way of thinking because I like reading romances, novels. My mother used to have she used to buy be a I can't think of the word. She used to
The
get the
Harlequin
double
ones?
day. She used to get double day books. She was in the book
Oh, like
double
Book
day
of the
book
Month?
club, right? And so I just used to read all of her books. Now at that time I was probably a teenager, so some of them might not have been that suitable for me. But I think I was always I kind of was a person who, that didn't really bother me. I think I was a little more mature for my age than I
Yeah.
probably should have been. But I basically liked not just romance novels, but biograph- biographies, autobiographies. Uh, well, they didn't call them young adult books
Yeah.
back then, but young adult books, that type of thing. I just like reading.
Yeah.
And so then the reading just, like I say, uh, translated into drawing, and then the drawing translated into writing.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Cardyn, would you like to go next?
Oh, sure. So I'm Cardyn Brooks. Thanks for having me
Thanks for being
and for
here.
hosting this. And so when I'm not developing my invention ideas, because sidebar, I just found out during the second week of the shutdown that I actually earned my utility patent for my swim cap that I designed.
Oh,
I
wow.
found that out towards the end of March.
Hey, good for you.
Yeah, so that was exciting. But when I'm not working on invention ideas, thank you. I'm pretty thrilled about it. It feels a little
Congratulations.
surreal. Yes, thanks. So, but when I'm not working on invention ideas, as Pam said when we were kind of off mic, that I'm the outreach coordinator for the Right Women Book Fest We had the first one last September, and it looks like we're going to be able to pull off the second one this September 26th at the Marietta House Museum in gorgeous Prince George's County, of course, in Glendale, Maryland. And so when I'm not doing those two things, I write sexy fun fiction about grown-ups in love, so erotic romance.
Yeah.
I like it steamy, but I also like it upbeat and fun. And my most recent release is When She's on Top by C.X. Brooks. And the reason that the X doesn't have any punctuation is to honor my enslaved ancestors who were forbidden by law to read and write. So it feels kind of victorious to, be a writer as a profession, because I also read other people's works and review them for my blog and for a couple of online magazines. So that's kind of my major things. And like Pam, I've always been a big reader. My parents always let me borrow whatever I wanted to borrow from the library. And like Pam, often I got things that probably were not appropriate for my age, group. But in hindsight, I think some things just went over my head. Like I didn't. I didn't. Right, I didn't recognize. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. But now as an adult, I was like, oh.
Oh my.
But yeah, so bottom line is, I just really like romance in general because it's super optimistic. Like no matter how far-fetched it is, the expectation is that the people are going to overcome their challenges and end up together, either happily ever after or more commonly now, happily together for now. So
yeah, that is common for now. Good point.
Yeah.
All right, Shelley, would you like to go now?
Sure. My pen name is Shelley Ellis. I've published in my career about 15 books.
Wow.
The book that I was nominated for NAACP Image Award in 2015 for the romance Another Woman's Man. And since then, I've shifted more to women's fiction. I still have self-published romance novellas, but my women's fiction and my urban fiction has a strong romantic element. My most recent series was called The Branch Avenue Boys, and that came out last year. I now have a book that's coming out in August that's historical women's fiction, and it's called She Wears the Mask.
So that's coming out in August.
Yes.
Okay. Super recent.
Yeah.
Not that big yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of timely right now. She wears the mask.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
That's.
Go ahead.
Did I get into?
Yeah, tell us more about how you started.
Much like everyone else on here, I was indoctrinated into romance through my mother. She was a big romance reader. We always had paperbacks around the house. And actually, the first short story I ever got published by BET Books was because of my mother. I was in college and I was 19, and I had been scribbling stories in my notebook. And my mother heard about this competition for a first-time writers contest. And she said, I think your stories are good enough to be published. And I said, I don't really think so, Mom. And she said, I don't think anything could be lost by at least trying to enter. So I put it off and I put it off. And about 3 weeks before the competition was supposed to close, I finally said, okay, whatever. I submitted a short story and I became one of the finalists. So it was one of the first short stories that I ever had published, and I have to credit her for starting my writing and romance career. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you. Well, thanks all for sharing. So you can all just jump in for the rest of these questions.
Great.
What was the most surprising things you learned about your genre? The genre of romance.
I would say Um, I would say, well, nowadays with the advent of self-publishing, writers can write whatever they want, and like Cardyn said, I mean, it can almost be like fantastical, and you can write about it, like now with the shifters and all these types of um, books and stories about a woman in a, some type of, some type of, well, I guess I should say animals or, just fantastical types of
Right.
stories.
Yeah.
You can, the sky is limitless.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of, like you
So
were saying,
that's
Pam,
what,
there are a lot
that's
of
what I think.
mashups. Like, yeah.
For me, when I was trying to submit stories to publishers, some of the rules that they had, and I will say the rules have definitely been bent a lot more thanks to self-publishing, was even the couple has to meet in the first 10 to 15 pages, or that that you can't postpone too long when the couple is going to be together, or it has to have a happily ever after. That is the qualification for romance. And so I kind of knew it from reading, but I didn't know it until I started to get feedback from editors. It was like, no, this opening is taking way too long. Your couple needs to be together by this point in order for it to qualify as a traditional romance story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like they all have the same like aspects, the romance books, but I figured that was just like, by happen chance.
right, no.
But no, well, that's interesting that they're telling you it's like a formula you have to write your book in.
Yeah.
And I think, like Shelley just said about self-publishing, opening that up, because self-published authors can prove, oh no, readers will go for, a longer, span of pages before they meet or fall in love or kiss or anything like that. But I think self-publishing really made that possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you guys find is particularly unique about the romance genre?
Isn't that what we just said?
Well, no.
I didn't mean that. Isn't that what you asked about? What was so surprising?
Yeah, some surprising things. But is there like something unique about the genre that other genres don't have?
I think is what they already said was the expectation of the happily ever after.
Okay.
This is something that I think is supposed to be universal to the genre, or the happy for now. And I think both other authors have already said that that's what draws them to the genre. I think that's why it draws people, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you even though you might not know the specifics of a story, a love story, when you pick up the book, if it's romance, it's ultimately going to be triumphant. Even if you don't like the main characters or something like that, you go in knowing it's kind of like, like the superhero movies. Like no matter what superhero movie you go to, you're expecting they're going to triumph.
Yeah.
It might be hard, it might be difficult, but it'll happen.
Gotcha. So I don't really read a ton of romance. So that's kind of maybe why I'm like, give me all the, give me all
right. Give me the inside, the inside tip.
Stuff.
That's why I think that's why I write contemporary, because I don't like it to be so much of a formula. I want it to be still an element of surprise of whether or not will she, won't she, will he, won't he,
I like sad endings for romance, to be honest.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet.
So if you like the sad endings, you're more maybe kind of women's fiction and like literary fiction, because
Probably,
both of those groups have romantic elements of some kind of evolution of a relationship. But in women's fiction and literary fiction, the happily ever after is not a guaranteed, and in fact, that's the exception rather than the rule.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so surprised, like, to hear that if you want to write in romance, you have to have a happy ending. Because my favorite, I guess, romance ones would be the ones that, like, your heart hurts at the end.
That's what I think is that's one of the things I guess you could say is so surprising now. There's so many categories that come under romance. I mean, you know, like you say, women's fiction kind of, contemporary romance, or erotic, you know, it's just
chick lit.
Sky's the limit. Yeah.
What advice? Oh, go ahead.
No, go. What advice?
Oh, yeah. What advice would you give to budding romance writers? Do you have any?
I would say stay true as much as you can to your creative vision, because especially when you're starting out, like Shelley was talking about when she was first getting feedback from editors about, oh no, you know, it's too many pages before they first meet each other and things like that. So editors have a right to say what their expectations are, but if you really feel like, no, they're not going to meet till page 25 because of what your vision is for their, you know, relationship arc or the story arc, I would say keep writing, and that's true in the way that's true to your vision, but keep looking for an editor or a publishing house that understands your vision and supports it. And these days, if you can't find, you know, an editor or publisher, then evaluate self-publishing, because it's a lot of work, but for the creative freedom and autonomy, it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
So are you all self-published, or do you? No, Shelley, I think you aren't.
I'm a hybrid. I have self-published, and I have I'm contracted with a traditional publishing house in New York. So for me, the advice I would give would be based on the route you wish to take. If you feel that the story that you want to tell is important, and adhering to that story is important to you, then I would say that you should probably consider self-publishing or independent publishing as a route. Now, that the publishing professionally, like everything else, is an art, but it's also commerce. So you may have to make some concessions. I get feedback from my editor all the time that says, like, I don't think this would sell, or I don't think this is the path to go. And that is a situation where I say, okay, she doesn't think it will sell with them. I'll write a different story for the publishing house. But if I have a story I believe in, or a series I believed in, like I self-published a novella series called The McGlane Girls, my publisher had turned it down. They said that they didn't feel it was right for the market. I decided to self-publish it. I did not leave my publisher. I still printed or work with them in other stories, but for me, it was still important for me to get that story out. So like I said, the advice I would give is that it depends on what path you want to take. If you do feel that your story is important, then I do think you should publish it the way you want to publish it. Yeah. But if you're trying to get an editor, if you're trying to get an agent, you may have to acknowledge that there are some artistic concessions you may have to make to go that route. It doesn't mean that you should publish what you don't believe in. I don't think you should be a full sellout or sell yourself out just to say, I have an agent. Well, that's great, but you're publishing stuff under your name you're not proud of. But you have to acknowledge too, there may be some things that you may have to shift or change if they say, we can't sell this. And if you feel really passionate about it, I would say you should still publish it. Just do it, self-publish it, do it under a different name, or just go another route.
Is self-publishing,
Yeah.
is there a lot involved in self-publishing?
Yeah, there's a lot
So
of
let
work
me start with
involved.
saying,
Me-
so my first book that I did self-publish,
Good.
even though now I have a contract with an actual small publisher. So, but my first book, Seducing the Burks, I ended up self-publishing because the feedback I kept getting from editors and literary agents was they all would say, oh, I read it, I had my partner read it, or I read it more than once, and they loved the dialogue and the character development and the storyline. But then I would get this coded feedback that would say, but is it realistic? Are these characters realistic for your target audience? So the way I had to kind of translate it is I write about privileged Black and brown people because that's what I know. And I don't mean privilege like, like millionaires and billionaires, but I just mean solidly middle class, upper middle class. And at the time when I was first starting to get published in the late 90s, early 2000s, really most of the mainstream, in quotation marks, romance about Black people was about lower socioeconomic status, which is totally valid, but it's not the whole Black experience.
Yeah.
But mainstream publishing was not ready to accept that as a truth. So that's how I ended up self-publishing my first book, to prove to myself and to the marketplace that there was space for this. There was an unmet demand in the readership for more, for a wider variety of stories and characters and whatnot. And so it ended up, I self-published, several book clubs chose it. I got really good critical feedback from reviewers who had never met me, didn't know me. They were just nice enough to accept a copy of the book and read it and review it. And so that motivated me to continue writing and to believe that I wasn't deluding myself about. So yeah, I totally agree with Shelley's advice about, that calculation of creative authenticity and commercial viability.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that either. This is so interesting. I'm learning so much. Thank you. If I ever want to be an author.
You can do it. Writers write. That's the key to it.
I don't know if I would have
I was just the
write.
opposite.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I was just the opposite. I guess you could say it was a self-published book, but then again, it was like from a vanity press. So it was kind of, a little suspect back then when I first published, but they still happen to be professional. I mean, it looks professional and whatnot, but the thing that I don't like about it, or that I didn't like about it, was after it was published and had been on the market for a while, it just kind of like disappeared. So and that actually was the ebook version of my first book. So I ended up self-publishing my ebook version. And so, I don't like the kind of, fly by night, I guess you could call it, the fly by night nature of that press. But, I learned from it, and I learned that I just would rather self-publish for the foreseeable future until I, get a good publishing company or agent, or I may do as Michelle and do a hybrid type of thing, because now the sky's the limit. Now you don't have to do one or solely one or the other.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing.
We're living in a good time right now.
We are. And Pamela, I was just going to piggyback on what Pamela was saying about when it used to be called vanity presses. because the attitude used to be, if you self-published, you had to self-publish because you weren't good enough, your quality wasn't high enough to get a conventional publishing deal. And I think the advancements in the technology and also the high caliber of work that's been coming out in all genres, nonfiction included, where people have self-published, the combination of the advances in technology and the exposure of the high quality of the work, often higher quality than what the big 5 publishers are putting out, that's really changed the game.
So it gave some power to the smaller authors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I will acknowledge that the publishing houses in New York don't have the answer for everything. And they're not interested in every market. There could be markets out there that is right for you and right for your audience, but a publisher could say, like, I don't see the profit margin for it. So why would I invest in an author who writes that type of writing? So if you know that your writing is for a specific market and you know it's there, I see no reason why you shouldn't self-publish.
Right.
Excellent points.
Yeah. But just be willing, like as other authors will probably say as well, it is a grind, the self-publishing.
Yes,
if you don't have, if you know, it's just you're in charge of everything, every decision.
Yeah. Right before the call and right after the call, just going over like my Adobe InDesign and lining stuff up and adjusting images and talking to for blog tours, and it's like that. It's all you. But to be honest, when you're a mid-list author at a but I'm like, even mid-list author as a publishing house, we have marketing, but we don't have marketing. So you're still doing
because unless you're the marquee
yourself anyway. But I'm like, they'll get you in the bookstores. They can give me in Walmart. They can give me in Target. They can give me in Barnes & Noble. But if I want someone to promote me, I'm my biggest promoter. So you're going to end up doing it either way. But it is definitely extra footwork when you're self-publishing. Yeah.
But see, that's one of the problems.
But I think we're still.
That's one of the problems with. Sorry, that's one of the problems with budding authors, budding writers. They a lot of times don't want to do all of that work. You know, they don't want to pay editors, you know, for editing. They don't want their stuff proofread. They think, well, I know a friend who, you know, spells really good, so I'll let them read it, and you know, and they don't want to spend the money. And that's the main thing with self-publishing is you got to spend money. Unless you know how to, you know, you're a graphic designer or something like that, you have to spend money, you know, in order to self-publish. Yeah. And make it look professional.
Exactly, because you want it to look professional.
How much time do you think you put into each of your self-published books? Years?
Sometimes that can take as long as
I didn't know it took this long.
Yeah, I mean, my first book, I would say from idea to available for sale, that was probably 2 years.
Wow.
But I was working. I was working a full-time, you know, paycheck job and doing some other things. But it definitely is a hustle and a grind. But at the end, when I had my book, the sense of accomplishment made it feel all worth it. So
and it's exactly what you wanted too. Like
exactly.
100%. So that's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get like a cover designer or someone, you know, to do your cover, and you know, you have a specific idea in mind, and then you get that cover back and you're looking like, oh, no,
you missed the mark.
Yeah. So, but it's just a collaboration. It's a give and take, and you just have to, if like Cardyn said, you know what you want, and you just work with it until you get what you want. I mean, not in an overbearing way, but just
Right.
your vision.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right.
Do you guys have any go-to tropes that you like to include in your books? So no.
Well, I was gonna say I love Friends to Lover and Women in Jeopardy.
Okay.
Those are my two of my favorites.
You just can't resist.
I love it. I love it for myself as a writer. I love authors that do those. Now I enjoy, if an author's a talented writer, I'll enjoy it either way, but that's just a little extra something if it's the Friends to Lover or the Woman in Jeopardy. Or if it's a power disparity where it's the woman in a heterosexual relationship, where it's the woman that has the more power and money than the man. Because I'm always interested to see how that dynamic works out, because I think it takes a very secure man in this society to be good with loving a woman who has more money, who has more power, who has more status, and negotiate a healthy relationship in a world that often challenges that.
Yeah.
So
those are good ones.
No wrong with that.
How about Pamela or Shelley? Do you have any tropes that you just can't resist?
I think I've done Friends to Lovers.
What's that?
I've done Friends to Lovers several times.
Yeah,
I will say that that's one of my favorite, especially the time gap. Like if they were friends when they were kids and then they get older and meet up again, and you see how the relationship has evolved since the last time they saw each other. One of the couples in the series that I did, that was their dynamic, that they were best friends. And then they separated because of a misunderstanding. And then when they got older, it kind of freaked them out that they were attracted to each other because they had thought of each other as kind of brother and sister for so many years. So yeah, it's a fun trope to play with.
Why do you think you are attracted to that? Like, because it's like, I mean, has it happened to you in real life or no?
No. Actually, my marriage was more enemies to lovers, but I never really explore that in my stories.Maybe because it's too close to home.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
You want some distance.
Right. No, I know that I think friendship to me seems to be a good friendship. Like, I don't know what you all's personal experiences are, but a good friendship, like a trustworthy friend, a friend that's there for you. I know a lot of times people jokingly say someone who will help you bury a body, but a friend that will raise bail for you. Like, it's one thing about trying to hide something you've done bad, but a real friend is one when you have done something bad and other people know it, and then they still stay your friend. It doesn't mean that they're endorsing whatever bad thing you've done, but what they're saying is, I know that you are more than this one bad thing, or this series of unwise or dishonest, decisions or whatnot. So for me, I've been really fortunate. I have friends in my life that I've known since I was about 5 years old. I have a couple of really close friends from elementary school, and then a handful of friends from high school, and we've changed a lot. Like Shelley was saying, we have changed a lot since we were children, but we've changed in ways that are still compatible. We still laugh when we're together. We still have our little things of like saying things at the same time or whatnot. And to me, a true friendship just lays the foundation to really be in a healthy long-term relationship, whether it's romantic or not. And I know that's a big part of what draws me to that.
Yeah. It's almost like it feels safe too. It's a very safe
Exactly.
Space. Yeah.
And think about people who've known you when you were a child, like before you had braces, or when you had braces, when you were not stylish, when maybe when you had a unibrow, like, they know, like, you don't have to kind of hide from them because
Mhm.
they know kind of your imperfections and your blemishes and whatnot.
Yeah. So you just come into it being the friends to lovers thing. You come into it almost like they already know you. Though you don't have to put anything up.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, I like
right,
that.
right. You still have to put forth, you put forth effort, but you don't have to have that moment of like, oh, I wonder what he'll say, when I do this or whatnot. If they knew you from childhood or from when you were a geek, they're like, okay, I know you're a geek.
Yeah.
Geeks are in.
Geeks
Just
are
saying.
in. I should have worn my glasses.
Right, exactly.
So would you any of you like to share about your writing process? So what does that look like for each of you? So I'm not an author, of course, so I have no idea what this looks like. Are you 9 to 5? Are you, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.?
No, I'm not. I'm strictly a pantser, as they say. I work another job, so, I basically have to be in the mood to do it. I can't sit like some people sit at a laptop or a piece of paper and a pencil and just stare at it until they get something on paper. I can't do that. Maybe because I'm a Pisces. I have it has to hit me,
Yeah.
and I mean, there are times when you're at the laptop or your piece of paper and while you're writing you're struggling, but I can't just say, well, I'm going to write for like 5 hours or what have you, come hell or high water. It just doesn't come to me like that. So
Just for the sake of writing or saying you were writing.
well, I mean, some people have, I guess, that discipline, but I don't. I don't have that kind of discipline. I have to feel it,
Yeah.
I have to be in the mood to do it.
I think especially for romance, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
for anything.
Anything, yeah. Yeah, I guess
Even
it's
the children's book that I wrote, I still had to, be in that atmosphere. I guess you would say, but some people don't have that issue. They can grind it out, but I'm not one of them. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
I used to be a pantser and I used to be right when I felt like it, but then I had to write under deadline. And I've been under deadline consistently since 2013. So it got to the point that I had to do outline because I knew that if I waited for when it came to me, and I work too. I have another job. I'm an editor for a nonprofit. If I waited, I knew I wasn't gonna hit that deadline. So it was a writing style I had to adapt to. But it was one of those that for now it's working, and I'm a person too that I can't have this segment of day that I do it because I work full time. I'm a mom, so you get interrupted all the time. And so you take the writing window when you can get it. And so you know that if you don't take this hour, then chances are you are not going to write today. Wow. And you have that deadline waiting for you in 4 months. So that's a writing style I had to learn as a process to adapt to in order to write under deadline. But when I'm writing for myself, it comes when it wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you prefer just writing for whenever it comes to you then? Or is it different?
It's different now because when you get used to a certain process, the old process doesn't work like it used to. So now, because I write under deadline, when I don't have a project, then I start to have anxiety that I'm not writing.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
So then I'm like, all right, so I can think up a story. I can pitch a story. Let me think of some story idea. I can come up with a basic outline. And that's what I do when I don't have a novel that I have to turn in. Yeah.
So Shelley, when you were talking about your evolution of your writing process, it reminded me a little bit of when Diane McKinney Whetstone or Diane Whetstone McKinney. I know she's three names. I can't remember what order. But so her first book that was so critically acclaimed and made it possible for her to become a full-time writer, I think she worked a full-time government job. And so then she would get up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning so that she could write 2 hours, every day before work, because I think she was married. She had like school-age kids and all that. And I really admired that kind of dedication, because I'm in a privileged position in the sense that, so I've been working on my different inventions for quite a few years now. And I had a corporate job, and then they went out of business. So I've been able to stay home for the past several years and work from home. And so with the shutdown, what's messed me up is I had gotten into a routine of, I would just go to the public library every day like it was my workplace. And that's how I would see Rachel with her beautiful self and her stylish clothes. And so because then that would put me in the headspace of, I'm going to work, I'm not at home, I'm going to sit here. And I am for a first draft, I am almost always sitting with a stack of blank lined paper and a pencil. And I might outline a little bit, but I usually start with the characters, usually the two main characters, and kind of, what if these two people met under these circumstances? And a lot of times it might be something I've read in the news or heard on the radio, or, something that just caught my attention. And however it actually spun out, I usually think, well, what if instead of that, what if this had happened? And then once I have that kind of hook, then I start to flesh out the characteristics of the two main people, and then kind of what their family circumstances are and things like that. And then it usually grows from that. Yeah. So a lot of times I might be at the library for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, depending on where I am in the kind of writing cycle. And so that's really, for the past few years, pretty much Monday through Friday, and sometimes Saturdays too, I just go to the library and go there as my workplace, because what else am I going to do? It's a library. I'm not supposed to be chatting with other people. so I might as well.
Surprise! There's a lot of chat going on there.
I know.
See, my problem is, though, as far as the getting up at 4 o'clock to write, for a couple of hours.
I couldn't do it.
I get up at 4 o'clock anyway.
Oh,
God.
so
oh wow!
That means I would have to get up probably
like
at
2
o'clock, and I really have a
no. You just have to write on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already have an issue with sleep deprivation, so I kind of need the 4 or 4.5 hours that I kind of get that's broken up anyway. But I hear what you're saying, and I hope that once I retire at some point, I'll get to be in like the habit, like Shelley said, where I can really buckle down and, write with a schedule, because right now it's kind of like I don't do that as much as I probably should. I'm trying to learn how to be a hybrid pants. At some point, I am trying to get into like writing outlines and stuff, but it's kind of like I'm going into that kicking and screaming.
Yeah. Do what's been working.
I get it.
You can stick with what's been working.
Yes.
No, I want to try, it sounds more productive. So I want to kind of try that as well. But right now, I'm just like, as you say, Cardyn, I'm not in that headspace yet.
Right.
I'm gonna try to do it. I'm trying,
Well, the library will be here for you when you retire. I look forward to seeing you there.
What was that?
I look forward to seeing you at the library when you retire for your.
Oh, I used to really be in the library before I first wrote my first book. That's well, I guess I shouldn't say about how long ago that was, but
last year.
I basically exhausted the supply of how-to books, and then the ones that were like for reference, I had to sit there and write it, back then, and had that, Fred Sanford hand doing it because I mean my hand would be cramping. I wrote, so much. But now with the advent more of, laptops and stuff, that really wasn't available back then. So you basically had to, pen and use a pad and
Paper,
pen
yeah.
Yeah.
and basically, sit there and write it until
Do
they,
you all
threw you out or
do you all use a laptop
was
to
that?
write now? Or do you write with start with pen and paper?
I still write with pen and paper, and then I transfer it to the laptop. So
My very first draft is always handwritten. There's just something. It's a psychological thing, like the connection between.
I think that's
just,
me too.
Yeah, thinking it, and then it's almost like sketching it, but using words.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I have pretty much the whole concept laid out, then I feel comfortable going to my laptop and getting it, and then I'll just keep doing revisions from the laptop.
Okay.
So yeah.
And Shelley, you said you start from the laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I in the early days was pen or pencil on paper, but I don't know, maybe early arthritis that my hand cramps up. So
Oh no.
gosh, yeah.
I had to switch to
You
the
can
laptop
relate with that,
because
huh?
that it's like,
Plus, you
this
sound
hand is
super.
gonna be
You sound super productive, Shelley. You write a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. It's just the time process that I was like, I don't know if I would have the time to be able to transcribe. But I will say that I'm a person who does lots of drafts.
Yeah.
And some people are like, they go from beginning to end and they said they don't stop, then they draft. I've never been able to do that.
Wow.
I'm a person that I'm editing 3 paragraphs in and said, oh, that doesn't sound right, and I'll go back. So that's why I'm like, if I added writing to that process, I know that for me,
It'll be years.
it would be painful.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And let me plug one other thing about the library. When
Thank
Pamela
you.
was talking about, oh, you're welcome. Pamela was talking about how many books she borrowed. So at the beginning, when I mentioned that I actually, earned my utility patent, the main reason I was able to do that is I borrowed a book from the library called Patent It Yourself. It's about 800 pages.
Whoa.
But it was really helpful. I didn't have to read all 800 pages because all 800 pages didn't apply to me, but it was really helpful for getting a feel because I was able to submit my patent without using an attorney. I did it myself, but I couldn't have done it myself without that book.
Right.
And it ties into my love for the library, from a very early age of being a child. Like I was saying, my parents let me go and check out whatever interested me. And it has always stuck with me. I love libraries. I love going to a library. The idea that just about anything you want to know or you're curious about, you can have access to. And now with technology, that's just made that easier. I just can't say enough, programs like this, people like you. I mean, the library is just a treasure trove.
Thank you. Is your next novel going to be set in the library?
I was thinking about it, but I don't know. I'm like, 2 geeks meet in the library.
Perfect.
Behind the bookshelf.
Okay, I'm going to keep that under my cap. I'm working on something right now, but you never know. Check for that in the next 2 or 3 years.
All right. You can name them Rachel. It's fine.
I will. And she'll be somebody fabulous and irresistible and
perfect.
I'll say inspired by actual person.
Well, that's it. I actually wanted to ask where you all find your inspiration from. Cardyn, you said sometimes the news. News. Did you want to speak more on that and everyone else chime in too?
Sure. So a lot of times, my parents and I, because I take care of them, they take care of me too, but we're in that situation. But especially during the shutdown, but they actually still get a newspaper, a physical newspaper. So so, a headline will catch my eye, and then that'll draw me into reading the article. And again, like I was saying before, it'll make me think, oh, well, in real life, this is how it unfolded. But what if this one thing had been different? Or what if this person had this characteristic instead of this other characteristic? So the what if part is what really usually hooks me. And if I feel like I can spin it in a way that's interesting, that'll usually get me really going. But but I'm always interested in how people meet, why they're attracted to each other, and then how they pursue a healthy relationship. Because I'm always interested in rising to the challenge of a relationship that works for both people. I mean, I know compromise is a part of having a good relationship, but compromise in a way that neither person feels like they've sold themselves out on something major, which I think is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
So so that's my deal.
I think mine is more of a hybrid type of thing. It's like some of it's based kind of loosely on a real life situation I may have seen, but then the people may not resemble what I actually see in real life in the slightest. So it could be a mixture of, real life events and just things off the top of my head, my imagination.
This was good.
Pretty much. Don't want to get sued, It's usually actual people, and
right.
in this day and age. But it's usually, you see something, a situation. You could be in a beauty salon or on the street or whatever. And like Cardyn said, what if? Your mind just starts thinking, what if this happened? Spin it into a story.
Where do you get inspiration, Shelley?
Basically like everybody else, everywhere.
Yeah.
It could be the news. It could be something you witness in real life. It could be a TV show. It could be another book.
Yeah.
Now, I won't lift a plot from another book, but I will say that good writing is, to me, always inspirational. What makes me passionate about writing stories as well. When I read a book and I just get so excited at what that author did and how they executed the story or the characters they created, that makes me want to go to my laptop and say, like, okay, what can I do that could even come close to what I just read? And even, I don't know if the other authors have experienced this, even if you say the story isn't based on real life, there will be people who read your work who still insist it was about you. I've had relatives do it all the time and say, I know this is about me. So actually it wasn't. But
that's
whatever.
the thing. They'll do that, but it's not actually still.
No, but it doesn't matter. You can deny it all you want. They insist that they inspired you and say, okay, sure, whatever. It wasn't about you.
Yeah, I used to like write when I was in the hair salon or the doctor's office, and if I knew someone there, or even sometime at lunchtime, at work, and I remember they say something like, what are you writing about? You writing about me? It's like, no.
Yeah, I am.
I don't know why they always think you're writing about them. No.
Yeah.
But like Shelley said, they don't believe you. But, so they had to read the book and find out, it's not about that.
No, but also what Shelley said too made me remember that the very first time I read a Sandra Kitt story, The Color of Love, when I read The Color of Love, I was like, oh, yes, this is what I want to do, because it was the first mainstream interracial romance that I read where, in particular, the Black characters felt authentic. And I was like, oh, yes, okay, this is what I want to write, in that kind of way, that authentic connection, emotional, culturally, and yeah, Sandra Kitt really opened my horizons as far as what I wanted to do as an author.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We've been chatting forever. This has been great.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to all go around and tell how people how they can reach you or get a copy of your book? When we reopen, we do have copies of your books in the system available for checkout.
Oh, great.
But I didn't know if you want to share like
Oh.
websites, Twitter handles. Pamela, you want to start?
I can be found on Facebook at Pamela D. Beverly author, or I could be found on Amazon. You can find my books. You can basically find me on Draft the Digital or Books to Read. That's where you can find like ebook versions, but basically on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, that type of thing. Still to Walmart and Target, things like that, but
You'll get
not
there.
there yet.
This will help you close.
What's that? What'd you say, Cardyn? What did you say, Cardyn?
This will help you close, maybe?
I don't think she can hear me.
Cardyn, are you there?
Oh, I said that's getting you closer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, and also I do have, I'm on WordPress at Pamela D. Beverly .wordpress.
All right, thank you.
Nice.
All right, Cardyn, where can we find you?
Okay, so on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Cardyn B Presents. On Amazon, Facebook, Goodreads, Smashwords, C Writes, and Tumblr, I am Cardyn Brooks. Cardyn Brooks, it's easy to find me. And When She's on Top is from Black Opal Books, and their website is blackopalbooks.com. And let's see, so I read and review other people's books on my blog, which is blurdybenreader.blogspot.com.
Okay.
And what else? And I also reviews for In Detail magazine and Romance Daily News. So that's all.
Place. That's all. That's a list. Shelley, where can we find your information?
Well, the basic would be to go to my website, ShellyEllisBooks.com. It should have my Facebook link, Twitter, Instagram. If you want to pick up my books, you can pick them up on Amazon. You can pick them up at Barnes and Noble. When Walmart opens again, you can pick it up there too. Whenever that happens, you can pick it up there too. And just the book that I have coming out will be only on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and that's She Wears the Mask.
Okay, and that's in August, you said, right?
Yes, that's in August the 11th.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. You are fabulous local romance authors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, I can't thank you ladies enough for that awesome talk. Not only was it really informative, I also found it really moving, and it was just a joy. We are sad that we weren't able to have you in person, but I'm so excited to see you in the libraries again as soon as we open. Thank you to Rachael from PGC MLS for hosting. It was a delight, and I think we all learned a lot about the romance genre, publishing industry, and just these wonderful writers. So if you check the chat, I will drop all of the links to Shelley Ellis, Pamela D. Beverly, and Cardyn Brooks. Sorry for the misspelling of her name earlier. So you can find them all on Twitter and their respective websites as well. And you can find us, PGC MLS, at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and on our website at PGC MLS for more local authors in discussion, more readers advisory, and programs for the whole family. Thank you so much again for coming, and we hope you have a wonderful evening, a great Friday, and a happy weekend.